Royal author Christopher Anderson gives us his take on all the latest royal news, including what the royals think about Harry's upcoming book, as he guest hosts this week's episode.
I have to wait and see where they go with this, but I am almost certain that they won't like this book.
Plus, Meghan Markle faces Deal or No Deal backlash as she gets candid in a Variety interview.
I think they pay attention, and I think as far as Charles is concerned specifically, he feels betrayed.
And King Charles is set to sell the Queen's racehorses as the crown faces backlash.
I just feel, Dame Judy, get off your high horse, I mean, come on. This is fictionalized. It doesn't claim to be history.
We've got that plus so much more in today's Royally Us. Hello to our fellow royal lovers and welcome to Royally Us. I'm Christina and I'm so excited because we have a very, very special co-host this week, our friend and royal author, Christopher Anderson. Hi, Christopher. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm great.
I'm so excited to run down all of the biggest stories of the week, but you have some very exciting news. You have a brand new book coming out in just a couple of weeks, The King. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I mean, it is the first full and unsparing biography of King Charles III. And I've been working to tell you about the way it came to be. I've been working on it for 5 years. And of course, everything hinged on whether the Queen would abdicate or pass away. And I just happened to have been on a boat in the middle of the Baltic Sea when she passed away, unfortunately. But we talked during that period. And but there's a lot in the book, a lot of new material. And I think people will be pretty surprised at what's in there.
Yes, definitely. I read it and it is it's a great read and it's fantastic. You learn so much. And just a teaser for we're going to talk more in depth about the book on next week's show. So make sure everybody definitely tune in for that. But for this week, Christopher is going to help us run down all of our biggest stories of the weekend. There's actually a lot of news on King Charles. He met with the brand new prime minister just today, which is, of course, big news going on over in the UK. And there's also been some news that they are selling 14 of Queen Elizabeth's racehorses that were left to him. They say that this is nothing really out of the ordinary. Every year they sell the horses, but this is, a bit surprising to people. So how do you think King Charles has been doing so far in just the few weeks that he has been king? Obviously, a lot of changes going on.
Well, first of all, he's got to meet, the new prime minister has got to meet him, and it's called, kissing the hands is the phrase. No actual hand kissing goes on, but the new prime minister, presents his credentials to the king, and the king then formally asks him to form a government. That'll be interesting to see. A lot of turmoil politically in Great Britain. The racehorses are indicative, I think, of Charles's desire to really start streamlining the monarchy. And it's interesting because it's very symbolic. The Queen's one passion was horse racing. It's the sport of kings, after all, and queens. And the other person who was really interested in horse racing in her circle was Camilla. Charles never caught into it. He was more of a polo guy, even though he did try his hand at being a jockey in 1980. It didn't work out. But, it costs a lot of money, these racehorses. There are 50 of them in the Queen's stables, now the King's stables. And it looks like 15 of them are going to be sold off to try and reduce this million. I think they're operating at a loss of annually of £1 million, and doesn't look good when the British economy is failing as it is. So this is a cost-cutting measure. Camilla is an avid horsewoman. She just kind of stayed in the background during the Queen's reign because she didn't want to look like she was interfering with the Queen's thing. But now she can step forward, and it's interesting to see what she'll be doing.
Definitely. Yeah. Interesting that they are streamlining the monarchy in all different ways, including the racehorses. Very interesting. So this was a nice story. So King Charles and Queen Camilla are celebrating milestone birthdays by sending cards for people that are celebrating their 100th and 105th birthdays across the UK. So thousands of birthday cards have been sent out from Buckingham Palace each year. This has been a tradition that has been going on for quite some time. But that's not the only thing that is in the mail. King Charles is also thanking the public for their sympathies shared following the death of Queen Elizabeth. He wrote in a card saying, "It was so very kind of you to send me such a wonderfully generous message following the death of my beloved mother. Your most thoughtful words are enormously comforting, and I cannot tell you how deeply they are appreciated at this time of immense sorrow." He also shared a vintage photo of himself and his mother at Balmoral Castle back in 1952. So yeah, I mean, very nice for them to, take the time, send out some cards and some well wishes wishes to people celebrating some milestone birthdays.
Right. Well, I think it's 1.3 or 1.6 million. Anyway, it's a lot of cards.
Yes.
This tradition started with George V in 1917. How many people lived to be 100 in 1917? Not very many. He could actually sign the cards. I mean, this is part of the palace machinery. Doing it. Obviously, they're not signing, over 1 million cards. But it's important, I think, because the people who reach these milestones, this is his, the monarchy's. This is their constituency, as it were. This is their base of support among the older population. So I think it's a smart move. And also, I'm sure that the king was heartened by the degree of, global outpouring of emotion for his mother, because not only is it a personal loss for him, but it's something that really, it shows what the monarchy means to the world, really, and it's a good sign for him that people are, at least at this stage, rooting for him. Now, I'm sure as time goes on, he's going to have some hurdles to go over, but I'm absolutely certain those are heartfelt messages he's sending out to the public.
Oh, definitely. Well, I'd love to get your take on this because Meghan Markle has, of course, been making waves recently with some interviews that she's been doing, especially one with Variety, where she discussed everything from her Netflix documentary to her thoughts on the late Queen. So what really stood out to you in this? She said that, following the Queen's death, it was a complicated time for her. What do you think she meant by that?
Well, of course. Well, you remember those early photographs of the Queen with Meghan when they took their first official tour together, and Meghan accompanied the Queen on the royal train to northwest England, and they were laughing, they were having a great time sharing stories, and it looked like there was a bond between them that was quite remarkable, and I'm sure she's hearkening back to those moments now. Fast forward to the last couple of years, and no one caused more trouble for the monarchy, frankly, than Meghan. So, she said in a couple of these interviews that she pointed out that when Meghan Markle did that when she was 17 in her high school yearbook, somebody sent her high school yearbook, and she looked at the quote that she chose to go with her photograph, and it was from Eleanor Roosevelt, and it said, women don't realize, or like tea bags, they don't realize how strong they are until they're in hot water, And it was a prescient comment because Meghan was in a perfect position and has since found herself in a lot of hot water for the things she's said. But look, she's a complicated person, and we'll just see what the future holds for Harry and the rest of the royal family. I mean, this is something Charles wants to mend, but we're looking forward to the book that's going to come out apparently in early next year, and there can only be bombshells in that book. I mean, there's no way to avoid the fact that it's going to rub the king the wrong way. We'll see how that pans out.
Do you think there have been some reports out there that there has been some rework of the book, some re-edits following the Queen's passing? Maybe some olive branches have been extended. Have you heard anything about that? And do you think that's true?
Well, I think that might have been the intention, but they were the king's decision to initially not permit Harry to wear his uniform during the funeral. Right. The fact that at times it seemed as if the Harry and Meghan were being shoved in the background and even shunned, that did a lot of damage, I think. So I have to wait and see where they go with this. But I am almost certain that they won't like this book.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Charles will do about it. He can be. He's like his mother when it comes to the monarchy. He's tough.
Yeah. Do you feel like Harry, maybe after everything, wants to mend this relationship, and now he's kind of in too deep with this book and he has no choice but to put it out there?
I do, because the Netflix deal, I mean, they've set up a new life for themselves as, philanthropists and kind of communications moguls with the Spotify deal, the Netflix deal, all this other going on. And so their hands are tied, I think, to some extent. I mean, I'm sure they want to tell the full and true story. And let's face it, it's not necessarily a pretty one,
Yeah. What do you think the royal family thinks of Meghan's recent interviews and things like that? Do you think that they pay attention anymore? Or do you think like, it's just another week, another Meghan interview?
Oh, I think they pay attention. And I think as far as Charles is concerned specifically, he feels betrayed. I mean, if you remember the wedding and how Charles took Doria Ragland and, Meghan's mom to sign the guest book and walked Meghan up the last half of the aisle. I mean, he really was very fond of her, and I think he's somewhat bewildered. The Queen was used to handling this kind of thing. I don't think it threw her as much as it has thrown Charles, and understandably so, because this is his son and daughter-in-law who are, who kind of said some pretty hurtful things, but conceivably justifiably so,
Yeah. Definitely. Well, Meghan's also been receiving some backlash over the things that she said about about her time on Deal or No Deal, saying that she was treated like a bimbo. Well, a former model on the show, Claudia Jordan, said that they got so many opportunities from the show. It's pretty much if you show up and you engage and it opens up a lot of doors. It kind of like echoes maybe back to, during her CBS Tell-All interview a few years back, where she maybe elaborates the truth a little bit. Did you kind of get that vibe from this statement that she made?
I think she's kind of, playing to her audience. I mean, in the wake of Me Too and everything else, I suppose there's a reevaluation of how these work. But look, she was 25. This was her first at the time of Deal or No Deal. We all watched that show. It was great. And if you remember, those models were not, the briefcase girls, whatever they called them. They were treated with some degree of respect, and they had comments to make, and it was a fun show. Mm-hmm. And I think it was her first big break. And believe me, I'm sure she did everything, moved heaven and earth to get that break. And if anything, I think she should be. It does make her look like something of an ingrate. Let's be honest.
Right. Yeah. No, it opened up a lot of doors. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the notion that she doesn't want to act anymore, I find fascinating. I mean, of course, now she's in a position to really make a kind of. I mean, Harry has given her the biggest megaphone in the world, or one of the biggest. She plans on making use of it. So that does make sense, I suppose, that she does not choose to go back to acting at any time. She said in one of these interviews she would not do that.
Right. Yeah, that was very interesting. But, doesn't mean that she's not going to be putting a lot out there. Like we said, she has that documentary coming out, and, it's, she pretty much says, like, I'm handing over my story to somebody else to tell the story, and we're ready to go.
Right. No, they're willing to make a splash. That's no question about that.
Definitely. Well, something else that is going to be making a splash. Let's spill some royal tea about The Crown. Season 5 trailer was just released, and they actually decided to put a disclaimer in front of the trailer after much outrage, including coming from Judi Dench. It states, inspired by real events, the fictional dramatization tells the story of Queen Elizabeth II and the political and personal events that shaped her reign. It's a new decade, and the royal family are facing what may be their biggest challenge yet, proving their continued relevance in 90s Britain. As Diana and Charles wage a media war, cracks begin to splinter in the royal foundation. Production of season 6 has also begun, and they said that it will not portray Princess Diana's fatal car crash. What are your thoughts on, do you feel that this was the right move to put this disclaimer in front of the trailer? Because a lot of people maybe take this show as fact.
Yeah, well, it is kind of a standard disclaimer. I mean, a lot of these shows say that this is based on real, actual events and that sort of thing. But they're making the point. I just feel, Dame Judy, get off your high horse. I mean, come on. This is fictionalized. It doesn't claim to be history or a documentary. It is a dramatization of events. Look, Camilla has met the actress who plays her and complimented her on her performance. She obviously watches the show. Harry says he watches the show and kind of likes it. We know that Charles and the Queen watched the show. So I think they're used to looking at depictions of themselves in the popular media, and they can handle it. When John Major spoke up, I had to laugh because am I the only one who remembers that the Prime Minister was caught in a huge scandal about having an extramarital affair with one of his own ministers? So, maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's what the concern here is. That might work its way into the show. But look, it wasn't a particularly calm time. What they're depicting here is a time of a very tumultuous period in the history of the monarchy. Charles was not behaving well. He was cheating on his wife with his mistress. She was reacting in a very, kind of flamboyant way. Diana had a number of affairs, and the scandals were just on a weekly basis. This is the most sensational time in the history of the monarchy. And I think, in a sense, it's what saves the monarchy, because I can go all the way back, to the 25th anniversary of the Queen on the throne. I covered that with the Silver Jubilee in 1977. And I remember the royal family walking in, and yes, they were like waxworks figures. I mean, we all knew who they were, but they were a little dull and stuffy. Mm-hmm. This is before Diana came into the picture. She caught, she kind of brought that relationship, kind of brought the monarchy to the brink. But in a sense, it made it much more fascinating.
Yeah.
And kind of, Charles's reaction to Diana's death really did save it. So I think it's this is the time they're writing about. The walk up to Diana's death is going to be, the subject of the next season of The Crown.
It's going to be interesting, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be tuning in, definitely. Well, before we wrap up, we have to check in on our pint-sized palace. And during one of these interviews, Meghan did give some insight into what Archie and Lily are into. They're into the Magic School Bus, Octonauts, and she said this was interesting. She said if they wanted to get into the entertainment industry, that she would be totally behind them. She said it would be great. She said, good luck. There are so many people that will talk about what opened the door for my children, but it still takes talent and a lot of grit. We're creating a multidimensional, interesting, kind, creative people. That's who our kids are. Interesting that you think that she would encourage them or support them going into the entertainment industry.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Right.
It's easy to say when they're this age.
Right, of course.
Actually, the knee-jerk reaction, you're right, for most successful actors and actresses, I never want my kid to go through what I've had to in the entertainment business. Right now, I think right now, the fact that they have a choice at all is a great thing, because had they remained in London and had, she embraced completely the role of Harry's spouse and just done her job as a royal, they wouldn't have so many opportunities.
Right.
So I think they'll be able to, in this country, it's going to be so Americanized that I think that they're going to be able to make their own choices.
Definitely. It'll be interesting to see what happens with them. Well, Christopher, thank you so much for running down all things royals with me this week. It's been an absolute pleasure having you as my co-host.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.
Definitely. And tell everybody, I know we're going to have a full conversation about the King next week, but please tell everybody when it's available so they can pre-order now. It's
in the King, The Life of Charles III is available right now to be pre-ordered. So I urge everybody to do that.
Definitely. Christopher, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.